Hello and welcome to this new episode of this new season of Odoo Unplugged. And it's a first for us because this time, guys, it's revolutionary. We're live on LinkedIn as well. So, wow, great. I have a bunch of big brains with me. You'll say, as usual. Yeah, as usual, I would say. So I have guys from R&D here with me today to discuss actually how the size of the company and the growth actually of it impacts our work, the way we interact with each other, the way the company is perceived, and so a lot of things like that. But first, guys, because I know you're big brains, but even legends like you need to introduce themselves. So who's going to start?
I think let's start with you.
Let's go, Jerry. Okay, so first I want to stress that I'm not here because I'm old. I'm here because I've been at Odoo for more than 10 years. That's not the same. I'm a software developer working mostly on the JavaScript part of Odoo. And it's been fun to see the way Odoo changed over the years. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Great, I'm Panos. I am also a software developer at Odoo. I'm in the services team, the R&D services team. And yeah, I'm here the middle child in terms of seniority. I've been at Odoo for 2.5 years, roughly. Yeah.
Cool. Amin, I've been here for a year and a half. I'm the baby of this episode, spoiled child. Well, roughly. But I work with R&D accounting with this guy. It's very fun. And yeah, we're here to talk about growth and stuff.
So, and I'm Olivier, if you don't know me yet, because after all, it's the beginning of another season. We might have another audience thanks to LinkedIn. So I worked as well in R&D accounting. I've been there for nearly 8 years, so it's starting to be a long time, but I'm not old yet. I'm younger than him, so that's okay. And so, as you can see, we have people with different seniorities, and so it's of course intended. The idea is to see I think we all have a different view of the company, and I guess the moment we entered it has a role in it, right? So maybe let's start with like the obvious question: did things change with the growth of Odoo, and how did maybe the mindset, which is like the first thing that will come into mind, evolve on that time? How was it when you started? Maybe Jerry, start with the most distant memory. This is going to be the running gag for this.
If you remember, can you tell us?
Back in the day.
It was a long time ago. How do you do those fairy tales like the story started once upon a time? That's what I meant to say. Okay, so yeah, when I started working at Odoo, like 11 years ago now, the R&D department was just, I'm not sure the exact number, like 30 or 40%. We had no teams no real organizations as a team. We were just one group of people working on the same location. So just those 2 points changed a lot over the years. Yeah, so that was the most, this is the most striking change. And when you know now, how many people are we in R&D, like 300?
300, I think.
400,
maybe.
400.
So we don't even know. Oh yeah, I knew I can say I knew everyone by first name on a first name basis.
Not
So
anymore.
now I'm pretty sure most people don't know everyone in R&D. So that's a big change. So yeah, the question is how can Odoo not change with such a growth?
Maybe. How was the mindset back in the day? I mean, I guess everyone was working on everything, and so
yeah. So do
you feel a change? Well, were there like different steps in the way it evolved, or is it like at some point we were more people and people started to like split the work?
There were like many specific milestones where we intentionally made a change. For example, I remember we made a change to organize ourselves as teams at some point. But before that, the mindset was mostly we had a bunch of stuff to do. We were like specialized in specific areas, but not so much like it was more like technology. We had some JavaScript people, and everyone else was working on their own on Python code.
So JavaScript was already a different tribe.
Yeah, but JavaScript was a different tribe. That's true. From the start, from when I came in. But the mindset was mostly about getting things done. We had a bunch of tasks, and we get there and we start working on the task, and we just merge commit and merge commit and merge commit. That was really very agile in a way, but not very organized, I would say.
Maybe too agile. I remember you said you do not even have like a review process or a
We had
ownership.
we had no review process. We had no testing. Yeah, we had some tests, almost none in JavaScript side. We had no CI system, so you could push a commit to the main branch, the master branch.
Yeah, this is the time I knew.
Without that would break everything.
Yeah.
That was for sure.
Yeah. And it happened like quite often that some guys pushed. It happened to me that some guy pushed a fix in stable somewhere, and actually the fix was breaking other things, and oopsie.
But did it fix the original thing?
But did fix the original thing. In my case, at least. The problem is the rest.
It was common to have a fix that would break something else, and then two weeks later, we would fix the next error, and that would break the first fix, the first bug. And it was quite interesting to see.
How does it compare to what you discovered when you entered, guys? How is it now? What's your opinion on that?
I think even when we don't have that much of a difference in terms of when we came here. I came in 2022, I think.
Last June for me. So.
Yeah, so only a year apart. And when I came, it was already, things were pretty established. Things were already quite more organized, in a sense that, of course, all the teams, again, were established. We had teams depending on the scope, as we do now. The framework teams were a different thing. So yeah, much more organized. The whole CI process was fully fledged out. A lot of automatic tests, proper like testing phases and everything. Yeah, just things are much more stable.
I can't even imagine pushing something without getting reviewed or tested.
Yeah.
It's just like mind-racking.
In my time,
Crazy.
we got the review. We had the run bot, but no merge bot. So essentially, your branch is green, or it should be fine. Just merge it. And well, sometimes it was not that simple.
It's mostly worked. That's crazy, but it mostly worked, except just before the big release.
Yeah.
Because everyone wanted to merge at the same time. And then that was really hell.
I guess maybe that's why eventually we got ourselves like a merge bot and
but that's
proper CI pipeline.
I think that's something that you need to that we can talk about. That it's those change, the pain of integrating all those change. We felt it, of course, every year or so, and so that was a problem that we had to solve. So that's why this is one example of a change that came from the bottom, from the developers. We could not scale our code anymore. We could not work efficiently. So we had to change, and we did it for ourselves. So it was not imposed because by management. I think the attitude was mostly like testing is doubting. So if you test, you're not really sure of yourself. So that's bad.
Well, on that side, the mindset changed a little, right?
Yeah, now we say that, but it's a joke now.
Yeah,
it's a joke.
Now it's a joke. So.
Oh yeah, and about documentation, it just triggers me that I remember when I was at Odoo for like 4 or 5 years, someone came to me to ask a question, and I told him. Look up in the documentation. And that time it was not a joke. I knew it was documented because I did it just before, but for many years our documentation was really incomplete. It's still the case, but it was even worse. It was even worse.
I would say still today we have this. Well, my big thing in accounting is the reports. Okay, and reports can be fairly complex. And I often get questions on the reports, and often people ask me, is there a technical documentation or on this or that? And my answer is always the same. It's actually look at the code, because we still kept that philosophy of saying to people, you should actually look at the code. The code is documented. That is a difference.
That's true. That's one of those change again.
And so I think putting the comments in the right place is enough, but I think that because I've been at Odoo for quite some time, and because when I entered, just comments or something that was kind of rare depending which module you were considering, and so yeah, it was but just read the code, it should be self-explanatory, and well, sometimes not, but all in all, you get that mindset of looking into it really. And I have a feeling sometimes it's something that maybe is a bit different for newcomers in Odoo, but it's also maybe Odoo when I entered, it was already complex, but it was less complex than it has become now. How do you feel about that?
I was about to say that the whole thing with just look at the code, I probably experienced that for the first time here, because I'm used to just find everything I need in the docs, right? And then I remember one of my first days here, I was doing like some random task, and I thought, okay, this is probably documented somewhere, because it's like very basic ORM stuff. And I remember I texted Ruben. He was my onboarder, I guess. Yeah. And he just look at the code. Just look at the code. You'll find it somewhere. Don't worry about it. And it became kind of a habit. Now it's funny when you find something in the docs, actually, because we're so used to not even looking there. So I remember I was working with one of my colleagues, with Sven, in R&D accounting about something, and then we randomly decided to maybe look at the docs, maybe we'll find something about what we were trying to figure out, and like, it was there, to our surprise. But I don't know, it's a pain point, really.
But I do think that things have improved. Like, for framework at least, I feel like every time I go into the into the code, everything is really well documented. Like, I see like the comments are very helpful, things like that. If you go now on functional modules and you see like Python code, business code, there things could be less documented.
But there is that's a general principle, like framework code is like used by everyone, so it makes sense, hopefully, that it's more solid, more documented.
Plus, the framework code, if you don't do a technical documentation, you don't do a documentation at all. I mean, you will not do a functional documentation about the framework code. It's weird. For us, we have functional documentation on, well, the different features the module offers, and so if you really don't know anything about the thing, you can look at the functional documentation, reproduce it locally, find a few things in the UI, whatever, that you will have to search in the code, and eventually find the thing you're looking for in the code with that. But if you don't have this original, I would say, hint about what you're searching, you're screwed. So indeed, for frameworks, it's different, and that's why I assume you make the documentation.
Also, I want to come back to the fact that Odoo improved on onboarding, on many kind of help features for new people. But at the same time, every time we change something, there is some resistance in a way, because if we have like a nice documentation or like a very, very good tutorial that explains every step on the way, and then there is a fear that people that come into Odoo will not learn the do-it-yourself mindset as well. So every time we want to change something, sometimes the people are commenting, they'll figure it out, don't worry about that. So there is a resistance. I'm not sure. So it's difficult to know what should we do.
Yeah, I think actually the size of the company also has an impact on that, because the more people you have, the more specialized they are on different things, the more the feedbacks become difficult to give to framework teams. And for the framework, I guess it's also, you get a lot of people saying, you need to do that. And actually, those things can be exclusive, and everyone sees only his own case. So I guess this must be
I
a
just want
challenge,
to comment on that. Everyone asks us we need to do something, and many people, sometimes even the same people, tell us, don't do anything. Because any change is basically a breaking change. It needs that we need to migrate code. It is more work. We can break stuff. So we need to evolve without evolving. That's a challenge. I can say that.
Okay, so you mentioned that the changes came like bottom up often, and we were like discussing it like right now again. Is it still the case now, or has it changed? How do you guys feel about that? So you or people that are newer in the company that you discussed with, don't give names, or do actually.
Name drop.
Do you think that this mindset of I have a problem on my side and I should try to escalate it to make it solved is still there as Jerry described it, or is it something that we lost or are losing with the size of the company? Because the more intermediate people you can have, the more team leaders and so on you have, the less, I assume, people are likely to feel confident to do that.
I feel like naturally there will be less impact as the number of people grows. I feel like if you're in a smaller team, you have more of a say on how things would be running,
Sure,
right?
makes sense.
Especially with the tiniest bit of seniority in a small team, you really feel like you have a bigger impact or a bigger voice to really, I guess, voice your concerns. But I feel like as the team grows bigger and bigger, that kind of, diminishes. And I feel like I joined Odoo at a time where it was like undergoing a lot of changes organizational wise. And also for me, because I worked for quite a bit remotely from Tunisia. And then when I joined in the Belgium office, not only did I transition from like working fully remote to being at the office, but also seeing these changes happen like in person was very interesting. Because we went from, okay, we're all part of R&D accounting. It's like 40 plus people. We're all working on tasks here and there, to having sub-teams and to like delving deeper into how do we optimize and how do we organize the team for efficiency's sake and also for scalability. And now we're also undergoing more changes.
Yeah, because the accounting team, just to give a little bit of context, grew a lot over the last years. And so indeed, we had to change the structure multiple times. We're like 40 something now. And the history of the growth of the team, I don't know it by heart. But essentially, 4 years ago, it was not like that at all. So when did we start recruiting really people? I think just after COVID, I think we like doubled the size of the team. It was very challenging, and so we kept on having newcomers all the time, and so indeed we had to change organization. So what impact does it have?
For me, before like delving on the impact, it's more of a philosophical approach, let's say, or the way to handle it. Because when you first divided teams, there was like a clear idea that we don't want to meddle with scopes. We want everyone to still be flexible and to work on whatever they want to work on. And then 6 months later, we actually decided to divide the teams by scopes too. So like the first thing I thought of was like, wasn't that the whole point of this change, is to make sure, okay, we can now track work better, and we have like smaller units of operations, which means that it's easier to manage how everyone is working within the team, and it's easier to see like what everyone's doing and how they're like working on whatever they're working on. But also we still have the flexibility of doing whatever you want to do within the team. And now we sort of lost that in a way. But so it, like, I got kind of lucky. I got a scope that I'm happy with and something that I enjoy working on already and I have experience with. But I also know that a lot of people got stuff that are like, now I have to learn all over again this specific part of accounting. And the accounting app is kind of huge. Like there's a lot to be done in accounting.
Because we have also all the localizations and all those features that can be shared between countries but are only restricted to some countries. So that's why the scope is so huge. It's not just accounting, and so that the audience gets it. You can have different ways of doing exactly the same thing, but like very different ways depending on the country you're in, and we need to support everything basically.
Yeah, and even localizations aside, there's a bunch of things to do. Like you have bank sync, you have reports, you have analytics, you have consolidation and reconciliation, like a bunch of things, and I'm pretty sure I missed half of it.
But I just want to say, don't be afraid to learn all of everything again. That should happen to you many times.
That's part of the job, right?
I guess at least at Odoo. We're not like stuck all the time in one specific location. You can move, and you should actually.
No, very true. That should be the mindset. Especially, I feel like in our line of work, you are meant to want to keep learning for the rest for the career, basically.
But that's interesting because I think I do think the same as you, but I think it's also because again we are older in the company, and there was a time where the split was not there at all. You even knew the time when there were no teams. So I mean that's if you knew that time and you learned you learn Odoo at that time, probably you still keep that mindset of it's Odoo programming. I know that whatever the context, and I will learn the things I miss when I need it.
In a way, yes.
Yeah, and I think this has changed a little bit. I'm not saying newcomers don't do that, because come on, but it has changed a little bit because it does not feel normal that you have to restart learning everything like that and stop working on the things you already did in the past.
But I think it comes from the organization as teams, and the fact that those teams grow as well. In a way, it shifted the power dynamics from individual developers to the team organization. And also each team has different challenges. So for if a team of 40 plus people has not the same kind of problem that a team of 5 persons has. So it may change. And it depends on the personality of people working on a team. And so I think Odoo is Odoo R&D, I'm talking about R&D mostly, is looking for the best process. I think that I'm proud of that. It's that we're not afraid of changing the way we work, and each team basically, not really completely, but basically self-organize and tries experiment with something. For example, organizing in scope, in not scope, and then maybe decided for good or bad reason to change. And what your team is doing is not the same as my team and other teams as well. And sometimes we fail, and then we change our process to make it work.
That's the thing.
Hopefully,
I think it's what you were saying before, that it's a bottom-up approach of problem solving. There was a problem. It's difficult to organize 40 people completely flat. Everybody's working on everything, but there is a problem. We're trying to find a solution. It's kind of R&D within R&D.
Yeah. That's the thing I was about to say.
Teams inside teams. Inception.
It's like a Russian doll. Yeah. I was about to say that the cool part is that you feel part of the R&D process of the how are we gonna organize, and how are we going to figure out like the most efficient way to work within this team, and especially to keep it aligned with the team's prospects and like goals. For in our case, our team is probably going to keep expanding.
Sure.
So having sub-teams and especially dividing them by scope is probably a good idea. And I think for me, that was like the only argument that really made it, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I get it now.
I think we'll just see how it goes. And that's the thing where we're trying something, and maybe in 6 months we'll be like, well, forget it.
Don't like
just
this
do
idea
the
anymore.
whole thing
Yeah.
again. Or we'll probably just iterate on the thing and add things. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah. Indeed, when we did it, we knew, and well, there was a bit of discussion about that inside the team leaders as well. We knew that it could be seen as a restriction by people, and so the goal is also that it does not feel this way, because it is possible. I mean, the current scopes, well, just before the split, come from the original split between teams that Jay was talking about. So at that time, I have an anecdote actually with about that, because we used to be a bit naive about things a few years back. When we released Odoo 13, Anthony came discussing with us, so our CTO came discussing with us, and was like, okay, well, I think with that we can really focus on only localizations, because accounting is done. We're done. It's finished. Well, he was a bit wrong, and that's the thing. I think splitting the scopes could allow, and will probably allow, more focus on the different topics, and more focus can raise more quality actually, and more a different approach of more needs.
In the end of the day, you can go deeper, you can go more specialized, reach more customers as well, because multiple customers have different needs and they need that depth.
But at the same time, you don't want to have silos or teams that are separated and do not interact well.
There has to be cross collaboration.
Sometimes you have transversal concerns, usability or patterns, the way you organize a flow. Sometimes it would make sense to harmonize them across
in our case, everyone will be like, every team will work on general accounting stuff. And then you have also stuff where you specialize.
So maybe that's what product owners are, like in a way they are transversal. They can relay message across teams. Maybe we need to change to introduce more.
On the whole R&D, probably. Well, I think there is a lot of work to be done on that side, because indeed we have multiple teams. So, each has their scope, and then you have bridge modules. That's where problems begin, because whose scope is that?
Maybe explain
it's really
what
arbitrary. So it's really, so you install accounting, fine. and then you use it. And at some point, you're like, oh, I'm going to install stock as well, so inventory. And I'm going to do inventory evaluation. This thing is something that is like a bridge, so a link between inventory and accounting. And so there is the stock account module handling that. But that module, whose stock, whose scope does it belong
It's
to?
very easy. It's the first part, stock.
Depends on the
It's
name.
not
Pure
ours.
username.
It starts
Smart.
doesn't start with accounts. Not ours.
But so that's the thing. Those modules need to be shared between teams, and so they are, and we manage to work with them. I mean, it's not chaos, huh? But I think sometimes
It's more difficult.
It happens a bit too often that we're like, what do they want to do with that? But after the other team did something within the bridge module, and I think that's really something that we need to work on with our organization, and that is probably going to become worse if we don't do something, because those bridges probably need some refinement that no team is going to give it if it's not really its baby. And at the same time, they need to communicate with the other team, because it will never be perfect if both teams aren't happy with it.
Now, I think that's interesting when you say that it's baby. It's the concept of code ownership in a way.
Yeah.
And before, once upon a time, there was not that idea was not so clear. Every developer could work on every part of the code, so it was not really well defined. Now it's even encoded in GitHub. So when someone is modifying code in my own add-on, I'm notified that there is something I should check out.
I really love that, by the way.
It's useful. It's useful.
Yeah, it's super useful.
But it's interesting. It changed the mindset also as well. So it's my code, and then it's their code. So it's us versus them, and it would be nice. I think that's what we're trying to do. That we are all a team. We have at least a big team with sub-teams, but we are all working in one single direction. We hopefully we have the success of Odoo in mind.
There's also the guideline stuff with that, because even the styling of the code can be a bit different between teams.
That's true.
We don't apply the same rules in the same way, and the same thing is not considered normal or as normal depending on the team you're in. And do you feel like we need like more guidelines or this? Because I think this is also like a
Hotly debated topic.
hot debate. Yeah, but that's the point of this stream, man.
We need more than 1 hour for that.
So maybe some future episode, but let's just tease it. Do you think that more guidelines are a good thing? Do you think we should keep things extra flexible like that, or what is your opinion on that? How is it perceived by people in general? I think from a social point of view, what is the benefit or what are the problems with setting more guidelines, purely from a programming point of view?
From me, at least. Again, hotly debated topic.
Sure,
Both
sure.
sides are kind of
You don't want to have problems
are
with
kind of,
colleagues
yeah,
watching this.
very
video.
right. Political answers coming right up.
What
No.
did you say, Panos?
But I think that obviously having really concrete guidelines makes everything obviously look the same across the whole code base, and that could make it easier for people to go across modules and understand perfectly everything, no slowdowns, no nothing. But at the same time, I feel like allowing that flexibility to each team that is working every day together to kind of choose how they want to like structure everything and write everything is also valuable, because you don't have any slowdowns there.
Exactly.
In my eyes, I tend more towards the second one. Just let everybody do their thing, because I feel like especially with Odoo code and the way that the framework is, and the way that generally the code base is structured, I think it's still quite easy to hop into another module, look at the methods, look at the fields, and just understand what's going on. And I don't think that syntactical things are going to be particularly a particular hurdle in you understanding the code. And of course, it's very difficult to enforce it also. Like,
Sure.
you will have to have something in like a run bot, like a check, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. You kind of lose, you look at the tree and you're not looking at the forest at that point, in a sense. But yeah, that's how I see it at least.
But it's also cool to have like a level of structure that everyone follows.
Which we do, to be fair.
Yeah, because it's like
it's a mess.
Exactly.
It's a mess.
Exactly.
And it's a huge code base
I
that
think
keeps growing.
I think right now the balance is okay. Like I feel like there is enough similarity between the modules for any, at least, okay, if you're a newbie, maybe not that much, but if you have at least a year of experience at Odoo Code, you can be familiar with anything that you look at, except for maybe like the super specialized modules like accounting, for example. I know nothing about accounting, so if I go to
You should
accounting
open the
and I
module.
see like
Same.
weird names on the methods, I'm like, I don't know what this does. I don't know what this is about.
Same, and I've been working there for like a year and a half now. It's crazy. Yeah.
You've been there for more than 1 year and you still wonder.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
That's the
No,
normal
but-
process.
I think even Olivier doesn't know what he's doing.
Random keys on the
Right,
keyboard.
right, yeah.
Maybe
These things happen in front of
reports
my-
or something. I don't know. No, but jokes aside, I think having some guidelines is really cool because then you sort of know what's happening all across the board. And that's the idea, right? Because it's like as I said, it's like a huge code base and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. So we want to have people be comfortable working on it and not like imagine hopping from an accountant module to an inventory module and like it's just 180. You have no idea what's happening anymore, and things are just written differently.
I totally agree
would
with
be
that.
nice. Would not be
Having
nice.
a common structure is important, but on the other hand, I tend to more agree with Panos on the fact that the too many guidelines become a problem actually.
Yeah, and I have two reasons for that.
Okay.
The learning curve.
I'm gonna give mine and then we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if we agree. Otherwise, we'll fight. That's gonna be nice on stream. We'll take your
Get the
sword
table
and,
off. Space.
So we actually have guns.
and you have the little bell. Ding.
Swords.
I think from actually when a human structure, so a company, a project, essentially is growing, putting guidelines is something that people will feel like is necessary at some point. And they're right, it is necessary. The thing is, as the company continues to grow, some people will insist on putting additional guidelines because they still feel it's necessary. And at some point, I think it is not anymore. It's just they feel like it's the good way to do it and they want to do it because it's the good way to do it. So there's actually no real reason behind it. Nothing really factual. And when you put too many guidelines, what will happen is that I think the developers will feel stuck in those guidelines. And sometimes you will write things that you're like, okay, it's not the clearest way to write it, but I have to respect the guidelines and I cannot write it in a different way because the guideline says I cannot do that. And also it has a deeper impact than that because you can say, okay, it's just the formatting of the code, but it's never just the formatting of the code. I mean, if you are used to thinking, okay, there are rules, I need to abide by them, make my thing fit them, even if it's absurd and not question things, this is something you will transfer on other topics as well. And essentially at that point, we will be less innovative than we
Like
are now.
philosophically, it would,
Exactly.
Yeah, philosophically.
You're putting yourself in a cage already, even
Exactly.
just
But
writing it.
just for writing the
I'm
code.
playing
So
the
for
devil's
big-
advocate,
Bigger
but
things,
the-
it will.
The reality is that we usually never manage to agree on to have a consensus on what the guideline should be.
Sure.
So that's why that was one of my first reasons is that every time we had discussion about guidelines, it's just endless discussions, and that does not bring any much value out of that. So usually we don't really have many guidelines, official guidelines. We have like conventions that are not enforced, but we don't have strict guidelines, not many actually, across the code base. Now, some teams have their own internal guidelines, and that's where it's good, but because they don't have the power to impose those guidelines
teams.
across for other teams.
Yeah.
And so that's a problem when you want to collaborate. In my opinion, my team is doing framework code, so when we change some code in framework, we usually have commits to adapt the rest of the add-ons to the new API or whatever it is, and then it would be it happened in the past, but it's annoying if it happens not that much anymore. But it's annoying when other teams are stopping the pull request by saying, okay, you did not obey our own internal guidelines, and I say, okay, it's fine, it's okay in my opinion, but yeah. And so what I'm doing personally is that I have relaxed standard of quality for contribution from outside my team inside my code base. We usually accept easily usually code that does not really conform to our usual quality or guidelines. It's not really quality. And sometimes we just make an extra commit later to change it if you want. Otherwise, it's not really a big deal.
Yeah, because I think that's something. Actually, anybody reviewing pull request has to learn that there's a difference between you like the style and it's dirty.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You don't want to focus on micro review and asking someone to change a single quote to a double quote or whatever. Yeah. You want to focus on the architecture. That's what's mostly valuable.
And if something is written in an overly complex way, it's obvious. I mean, you see it. You're like, okay, you're doing 3 conditions and a loop on top of that. You could have that done in 3 lines. That's something you could change because it's not just styling. It's just if you code everything like that and stack functions on top of each other with things like that, it will become a mess in no time. And that's something factual. It's not just an opinion. It's just when you write code like that, it becomes too complex because that little block you're adding is already too complex for what it's doing. But so indeed, I think it's important to have this distance with things. And as you say, since people don't all agree on the guidelines, it's impossible impossible. There is a limit to what guidelines can be set, and I think it's fine like this.
It could work if it was imposed
exactly,
top down.
Exactly, but then when the moment it becomes enforced like that by someone deciding these are the guidelines and I don't want to hear any opinion about that, you're losing the philosophy, and so people.
Yeah, it would work in a way that they would be applied, but it would not maybe match the reality of the team's situation.
Sure. It wouldn't be Odoo's culture.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we agree on that.
And that being said, it's time for halftime already.
Oh wow!
Right, it's time for the break. Yeah, guys.
I was gonna play the devil's advocate, but it's not.
So we'll do a little break. We are back for the second part of our episode. So we just discussed the guidelines with a lot of. Thank you for that. Pay attention with the decks. They can be a bit treacherous.
That was really fun.
So we just discussed the guidelines, the impact they have on people, and what a shift in mindset they can represent if they are, I would say, enforced a little too hardly, and if you go a little too far in that direction. I would like to go back on the relationship that people, developers have with the impact of their work as well now, because. Indeed, more people involved means you're doing things in a bigger thing, and so one can say, I mean, from a purely logical point of view, it's more diluted into the whole thing, so you would have less impact, I guess. Is it something that you guys feel, or that you can see that younger devs in the company maybe might feel sometimes that, I came in the company in 2024, so too bad the big things are already done. I will never have that huge impact on the product. Because, with legendary figures like that guy, it's a bit different because you hear about them. I mean, really, he wrote that at that time, and then we changed everything, and he redid that entirely. Is it still like that, or how does it feel today?
I feel like with tales as old as time, like Jerry stuff, like the things back in the day, back in the day. No, I'm just kidding. But I feel like there's definitely way more to be done. And for me especially, that's the main reason I joined Odoo, because I was reading the job post and I thought, wow, 12 million plus users. Boom. That is insane. Like a huge repository with 30,000 plus stars, and I felt like the impact I could have working in this company is like tremendous and unparalleled to anything I worked on before.
True, because indeed the company is bigger, but we also have way more customers than 10 years ago, and so
the impact is multiplied by the number of users.
And go ahead.
Yeah, but I know for a fact, like the plans we have for example, for the future of accounting, or maybe Odoo in general, like it only gets bigger, and we only have bigger and bigger plans and projects and things to tackle. So that's I feel like you still have lots of impact to offer, or I suppose to have on the product itself and on the user base. And for me, that's like the biggest plus of working here. And I feel like my work is really
Did you feel like that, like right away when you entered the company, or is it something you realized at some point that actually much could still be done I mean, by you, and you know, be recognized as your baby and the thing you'd done and you'd achieved?
Well, it definitely depends on how you want to approach it, because I feel like in Odoo, it comes from you. Like, what do you want to work on and what do you want to ask to work on, right? Because there's a lot of you have to be a proactive person to really have an impact, and then you could probably just work on smaller things and go unnoticed, or you can just tackle that one big task or one big project, and pour your heart and soul into it, and then make it your own. Honestly, especially when it comes to products with like a lot of users behind that really are waiting for that one feature or waiting for that one thing to be added.
We need both kind of people. We need people that maintain the ship afloat.
Definitely.
Even if it's not exciting sometimes, but you need small features, some small detail. And at the same time, we need people ready to change everything.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna tie back into that and say, like, essentially, whatever it is you're doing, you definitely feel like you are contributing quite a bit, because it's a big ship, it's a massive ship that has like a massive crowd, sailing or using it, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
So it's like the most rewarding thing you can really give to a developer, especially like someone who is freshly joining the team, to feel like they are part of that ship, and they get to have a say in how things work and what they want to add, and like the back and forth with the rest of the team members. It's really really enriching.
Panos, how do you feel about that?
Very similar thoughts, really. I feel like from the moment like I stepped into the team, and of course I'm in a smaller team. I'm not like, my team is much smaller than accounting. You really do feel like you are contributing to something, and that something is being used by people, and that is very rewarding. And our team's applications, the service applications, like the project, the planning, the timesheets, are kind of in that mature stage where I do think that some newer people might be feeling like my additions are not that big.
Yeah.
And it's reality, and it's...
And how do you ensure they don't feel like that? Because I assume, and when I say I assume, I would say I know, because that's what we do. that when you're onboarding those new devs, or you're like managing them, even if it's a word we don't really like to do, right. You need to maybe act or treat them in a certain way so that they feel comfortable, and they don't feel like stuck in what you did and what you decided, and it will never change because it's your thing and you're the boss. How does it work?
I think empowering younger developers is like the most important thing in these cases. Is from the spec creation by the product owner stage up until to the review stage, is not necessarily grabbing someone by the hand and being like, okay, you do this how it's done before, you do this how it's done before. It should be a back and forth, because
that's important. We talked about that in the past. We need to make sure that it's part of the job of a developer to kind of challenge a little bit the specifications. And sometimes we don't even have specification. The title of the task is a specification. Then we need to ask yourself, does it make sense? Or maybe instead of doing that, we could do it in a different way. It's much cheaper.
And
so
it's only
you need to feel comfortable doing that.
And it's only natural sometimes for it to come from the developer, because the developer creates something. He obviously tests it while he creates like a functional something, and like at some point you realize that this maybe doesn't make much sense, or maybe this should be changed like that to be better. And that's the back and forth that has to happen with product owners or other developers, if it's a review stage, if it's a technical thing.
Yeah, indeed, because I think it's important to recall that I don't know how many developers we have in the audience, but if some people are not developers and never programmed anything, you should try. It's fun. That's true, actually. When you're developing something, to make it work, you need to reach a level of understanding of the thing and the things around it, because you will see part of the code and you're like, okay, I need my thing to be inserted between those lines, but those lines are also handling this whole different mess that is just next to it. And the thing is, if I do it this way or that way, I could break everything in that case. And sometimes in the code, it's really obvious when you read it, like, okay, it cannot work actually. And so indeed, in these times, it's important to change it.
You do reach, as you said, like a level of familiarity with the functional side and the technical side that it is very difficult to reach only by just, playing with the product.
I want to comment on that. Raphael Collet from the Framework Python team told me once
Another legend.
something that if you want to do something properly, you need to you do it, and then you take your code, you erase it, and then you do it again. And the second time it will be much better, because the first time it's the moment where it's the work that you're doing to understand the business side of the problem. And then only when you understand it in a deeper way, you can write code that model it properly.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, it's kind of expensive if you want to ask people to do it twice, but it makes sense.
There is like an iterative side to things. I remember for Odoo 16 when I rewrote the reporting engine for accounting. It took me a year. That's my biggest baby. And it will probably stay my biggest baby because it was really a lot of work. And I wrote something. I realized, this it's nice. It will work like this, like that. Then you move on to the next report that you need to implement with the new thing in your list, and you're like, shit, it will never work.
There is a feature
and you need to restart it because it's just doing this little thing you didn't think about, but that is not working at all with your thing. And that iterative side of development is very important, and it is also very important in the way the developers, when they get experienced, will conceive the whole thing, because they will tend to anticipate things because of that, because they know that corner cases could arise there, and that's where the added value is.
And it's very important because you can usually find a workaround doing a dirty hack, like overriding the prototype of something just for just a tiny moment, and then overriding
reports
it.
used to work this way before 16.
But if you do that too much, code becomes more it's a mess. Not only that, but it's surprising. So when you encounter a bug, an issue, you know you're running code that you don't expect to run that way. You're breaking the intuitive, the conception of the simple conception of what it should be. So we should, but that's what we're doing. Rework the code many times over the years to make it okay.
And that's also one of the reasons why it's important for more newbie developers to still be involved in that bottom-up approach and try things, give feedback, like shouldn't we change that, because they will bring you new ideas actually. If something was written by you and you spend a lot of time on it, it may be very good, but it will never be as good as if someone with skill comes, sees it, and is like, why did you do that? There will be, even if it's nearly perfect, there will be spots that can be improved. There will always be spots.
Like Sherry said, it's important to challenge, basically.
And on that, about that, I just know that the fact that we have code reviews, and everyone, I think, do developers, they are reviewed. Myself, I never R plus or commit myself my own commit.
It's jargon. R plus is, so we have a bot merging the pull requests within the code base. So when you want to do a change, you do pull request, and then the pull request gets merged, and so the code is essentially integrated within the actual code base of Odoo. And so R plus is the magical word to get your thing merged.
Yeah, it means that someone approves the work, the quality of the work, and that it can be integrated into a Odoo code base. And I never do it myself. That's like a convention. I always ask someone, usually Aaron, but sometimes someone else, depending on the code, to approve it for me. And just the fact that I know that Aaron will look at my code means that I will not do the lazy solution. I know that, okay, if I do that, it will tell me that's not enough. Okay, I know that. Okay,
you don't want to look like an idiot.
So I do it properly in the first place. Because it's just the reality.
But I think it's pointing something very important indeed, because we talked about the growth of the company, but with the growth of the company, there are people who will stay in that company and take experience, become more important in the company. And those people indeed could be tempted to be like, yeah, but I know what I'm doing. Those people, that guy has been there for like I don't know, 10 years less than me. Okay, he's good, but I know better, so I don't need his review. You could feel like that. I mean, it would be completely human, but it's very dangerous to do that.
It would be poor leadership, I would say.
Yeah, it would be very poor leadership, and it would essentially be toxic for the code base, for the exact reason you were mentioning, actually, is that you will be lazy sometimes. You'll be like, I don't need to make this more clean. It works. I know it works. I tested it. I know it works. But the moment you're going to make a mistake, and you're going to make mistakes, because everybody does make mistake, that's going to be bad for the code base.
And it is a mentality that kind of creeps in. It's like first it starts with like a little thing, then like I don't have time. Maybe it's like close to like a freeze period, like a release period. So maybe we do it quick, doesn't need review, and if the mentality sticks, then it's
once you make one exception, you make 2, 3,
exactly.
and then just
and then at the end of it,
you then go back to pushing straight to master without any reviews.
Disabling tests, and that's it.
And I remember that we haven't quoted Fabien yet, so let's quote Fabien. It's always nice to quote Fabien at some point, you know. That's our corporate side. Yeah, it's but I think he was very right. So I think it was like some team leader meeting, whatever, a few years ago. And what he said is essentially that we should be careful with as team leader, our own ego, because if you feel pissed because someone proposed something and their idea is the one that is taken after discussion, whatever, maybe with Fabien or with Anthony, whatever, just because their idea was picked, so not for any other reason. You're just frustrated that your idea was not the one which was taken. You should work on yourself, because essentially being the leader does not mean you have to always be right. Yeah. Being the leader does not mean your solution always needs to be the good solution. One and the best one. And so that's just not your role, actually. And I think that's very true. And so essentially, I think as a team leader, even for product owners, it's a bit the same. It's important when you give something to do to a developer to leave room for the artistic touch, you know.
It's very
when I write a task usually when I write a task myself, it's for a very technical thingy that is not working as I want it to be to work, or that is you know, you have something functional to solve somewhere, but it can work, but it needs something really, like, you know, it's very very specific, and you need, if you change those 2 lines and do this, that it could work with minimal change. You know, you feel what needs to be done, and you're like, this is the thing. It's usually I explain it in a few words. I say, we could do that, we could do that, we could do that. Just come discuss it with me, because maybe I'm wrong. So it happens that I, of course, forget things, and I'm like, it will work like that, and then you see the thing, and you're like, no, actually, it will never work like that. Because there's this other case that I completely forgot about, and plus maybe there is a more simple approach, and the discussion will just raise the solution by itself. And I think it's important to do that, to involve people directly and just say, no, you come, you give your input, and if you don't have anything to say and want to apply my solution, do that, but first discuss it.
In my team, we sometimes start larger projects with a discussion. We call that technical meeting. It's not really formal. It just means that a few people interested by the topic at hand just talk and discuss freely what it could look like, the way we implement it, and it's a nice way to challenge. I think we always try. I always try to play the devil's advocate, to say we should not do that, or this way, to find a way to challenge the idea. And it's a kind of a game, but it's useful to take the time beforehand.
I think that's also something important to drive the discussion, so that new ideas can come, is to always be like, isn't it too complicated to do what we're wanting to do now?
Is it using a gas?
Gas plant, yeah. Do you see that in English? Is it too complex? And so yeah, this gives a lot of value, and
especially since I would say new developers at Odoo tend to over-engineer in a way that is not necessary. I would say
because that's also something you learn, and it's very true. when you're fresh out of school, university, personal training you followed, whatever, so you have no real professional experience. You enter the company and you'll have all those design principles in mind, but like, okay, I should do classes, objects, inheritance,
design
there.
patterns, stuff like that.
And actually, of course, all this is very, very valuable, very important. No worries with that. Come on. But there is a limit to what you should do with that for very specific, narrow cases. Sometimes a little hack is actually more elegant than doing the whole generic thing and rewriting half the class just for your corner case. That's also something you need to learn.
Yeah, there's a balance to have like between a nice, well-organized code, but maybe it will not interact that well with the rest, or it's too complicated.
And that applies also to like speed. You can have an algorithm that runs logarithmic time, but it's so convoluted, so difficult to maintain in the future that maybe linear time is okay.
Yeah.
But it depends of the size.
Exactly.
Also,
how realistic is it that this thing will have 10 million elements to sort, or is it always called on like 100? Maximum 100.
Yeah, it's like on employees record, so you're not gonna have 10 million employees probably.
It's unlikely.
Or the number of language installed, probably not more than 10. And even then, that's pushing it.
Yeah, exactly. So you always need to keep your distances with, or at least self-criticize the things that are good principles, good patterns, because sometimes they're actually not so good. Nothing is ever absolute like that. I would also say to better involve newcomers in the company, it's and make them feel like they can interact. Because I think you just enter Odoo. You just entered Odoo. You know it's a big company. Maybe you come from another company where things were very, very formal. You went to work with a suit. I don't know, boo. Things like that. Just imagine that. You will not have this mindset yet of challenging things. You'll think that it's more okay. I have my role. I'm doing my job, and then if the boss says something, it needs to be done like this.
A cog in a machine.
Yeah, exactly that. Actually, I think just being in the office with the others also helps on that, because you see how other people behave. I mean, someone who entered like 3 months before you. And you see that the guy is going to the boss or actually is having a meeting with Fabien about something. Fabien directly, bam, because there is something not working and he does not agree with the thing. It happens. If you see that this is okay, you'll know that it's okay for you to do it as well. And so being in the thing, I think, also helped a lot. But you guys both started remote, right?
We both started remote, yes.
How did it feel then? Because this must have been very different.
So I worked remotely way more than you did. For me, it was maybe 9 months or something before coming to Belgium. So it was quite a bit. And I definitely felt the difference of like actually being physically in the office. I was lucky enough to have a really good mentor that allowed me to feel like well accompanied and I guess mentored, really, to understand how things work. But it was always everything was always going through him, because he was my the most the point of contact really with the team that I had. But being in the office actually was so different, because then you see how people interact and how they deal with things and how they actually solve problems. And especially because sometimes when you try to post a message in the Discord server, it has a bit of weight to it, like everyone is just like saying hi, hello, good morning, we're starting the workday, but then you'll send this paragraph trying to ask how does this one thing work so I can actually use it in my task. And it feels like, why am I the only one asking questions? It's kind of weird. But then actually being in the office,
you are asking questions?
How dare you?
Odoo?
How dare you ask questions?
Everything is self-explanatory.
But that's true. The moment
should know everything. Should know everything.
The moment you need to write the question in a chat somewhere that is public, so it's worse.
Yeah, basically all team communication, or most of it, is kind of internal,
behind
publicly
doors.
internal.
Well, yeah. In the Discord server, it is for sure. Like everyone can see everything. But being actually at the office means, asking questions in the hallway randomly. It's like you're just walking around and you see someone, you're like, hey, by the way, how do you do this? How would you approach this? And it makes it way more natural to ask for help. it makes it way more natural to collaborate, because being behind a screen and then the rest of the team is actually in the office, it's like the odds of actually someone alt-tabbing to Discord to look at that one random question someone said aren't as high as being able to directly approach someone about your question.
And do you feel that people are, I think I have my opinion, but that people are ready to help? If you go see someone, he will not just brush you aside.
No. The one thing in my experience is that everyone in Odoo has been super helpful when it comes to helping me integrate, especially because I never worked with Odoo before joining Odoo, so I had a lot of questions. Some of them were good questions, some of them were horrible questions.
Makes sense.
And the one thing that's for sure is that everyone I ever talked to about or asked any of my questions was super helpful to not only give me the answer but also guide me towards where I could actually get more information and where I could learn to have less of that type of questions, really.
When to just give an example with that, I think when someone enters the office and goes to someone there and is like, can I bother you for a minute? So it's like, of course you ask, do you have a few minutes to discuss that? I think it really nearly never happens. Maybe just before the release, it's a bit different, but it nearly never happens that the guy says, no, I don't have time for you. Go find someone else. That's really rare.
I think
so that's saying a lot.
Literally half of my job is just asking Florian questions. He's my manager, and half of my job is like going back and forth between our offices and like, so is this good? Do we do this way or should we do it another way? And it's fun, and the guy's super helpful. So,
But I think it's good that R&D the way it's organized, we don't have usually hard deadlines, except maybe like you said, the big release. So we're not appraised or evaluated on our output in terms of the number of commits or the tasks that we are doing. Most
KPIs,
we can help each other, and of course it's invisible in our numbers. We don't really have numbers on that, but from my perspective, most people can help each other, and it works.
And I think it's visible in the team, because the team progresses, learns. People learn more things. The team output in general is more.
That's what we want, exactly.
So and again, the mindset, the involvement of everyone. This is not working, but we have the smart class just the week after to the experience. Any likeliness with the story that happened is purely. I know it's
coincidental.
It's coincidental. Thank you. And those people will be like, okay, I need to make this work because it's important, but by themselves because they want it to work, not because there is some manager on top of them saying, oh, dude, you need to work on that. It needs to work, otherwise I'm gonna fire you or you're gonna have a blame or whatever thing. And I think it's also because of that sphere and that constant discussion about everything. Something that I really love is really this, you have next to you someone who's discussing some topic with some product owner, and at some point there is one or two words popping into the discussion. You're like, actually I would like to participate to that, and you start talking with them as well, and boom, you're now part of the discussion, and that's how meetings actually happen at Odoo, and that's really nice.
You can say that there are impromptu meetings sometimes. When you go in front of the Framework Python office and then you see Anthony talking with Olivier Donny and other people, then you can
arguing about
you can actually
something.
enter. We don't have a popcorn machine. We should, but you can just sit there and listen. Or sometimes when you go in front of the Fabien or Anthony's office, you see people. Sometimes you'll get called into the meeting and you just talk about that. So there's this informal way of talking, and I think it's powerful.
That's the thing. I never really schedule meetings. I just go up to the person I want to talk to and start talking.
Yeah, but it's not a meeting. It's not really in the formal sense. It's just a discussion. And
that's
what matters most of the time. Sometimes you need to schedule meetings, but
definitely. But it's more of a hey, do you have a minute? I want to ask a question about this, or I want your thought on this, and then we just start talking and see where it goes. Yeah, which is super nice when you're in the office. It's way easier.
True.
And so we are reaching the end of the episode, unfortunately. But that will be actually, I think, our final conclusion. Actually, because we just pointed it out, and I just want to summarize it. I think it can be an advice for a lot of people. just let creative people work in an artistic way, because that's what we're doing essentially. Nice, huh? I can see you enjoy it.
It's art.
It's art, but it's somehow art actually. Programming is of course not especially a means of expression. Maybe it's a bit forcing the thing to put it that way, but there is a lot of creativity involved in it. The code that you write, if you know the guy, you know there's a style in which you program that is specific to everyone. And anyway, we are creating something, and being able to create things in a free way where actually the subjects come when they need to come, and everything stays super flexible. I think it keeps people more in control of what they are doing, and essentially the result will be better and more innovative.
Probably also more fulfilling to be able to add your own touch to it.
Sure.
Always, yeah.
Which is
and
also
more
very
fun,
important.
As opposed to just following.
And just more fun, which is also part of the whole thing that makes it work. Actually, I think if the developers at Odoo didn't enjoy what they're doing, the product would be way less good than it is.
But I really want to add a small thing about deadlines. Earlier you mentioned, Jerry. It's like we don't really have the deadline culture, but like you really want to push things out there ASAP because you actually care about what's getting pushed.
That's true. It comes from our
it's like,
passion.
okay, I'm working on this, but I really want users to be able to have it ASAP. So I'm like, I want it to be out there.
Yeah, although it's a weird mess, like we already talked about that. It's everything is changing.
Sure.
The code base is okay, but everything is changing, and we try to find a way to make it work, and it works surprisingly well.
Mm-hmm. And that will be the final word for today. It works surprisingly well.
Cool.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for all the discussion. I think we covered a lot of subjects. I hope our audience liked it for this first episode of our new season. Feel free to come back for the next one next month. You too, actually. Who knows?
Part 2.
Or you'll be back eventually. I think it went great. So thank you, everyone, and see you in the next episode.
Thank
Cheers.
you, Olivier.
Bye.
I'd get the swords.